What if I told you that for the ancient Greeks, the number 7 wasn't just a number, they called it a motherless virgin, or that the number 2 was a symbol for audacity and strife? It sounds kind of wild, right? Well, let's dive into this, because we are about to explore the lost science of the Pythagoreans. This was a world where numbers weren't just for counting. No, they were seen as the very essence of the universe.
And this is really where our mystery begins, with a huge loss. See, according to ancient sources, when the legendary philosopher Pythagoras died, the master key to his entire philosophy of numbers, it was lost with him. His most important teachings were never actually written down, they were only passed on by word of mouth. And for, almost 2,500 years, this has been an irresistible puzzle for thinkers all over the world.
So, that brings us to the big questions we're asking in this explainer. What were these secrets? And maybe more importantly, what did the ancient world see in numbers that we, in our modern, data-driven world, just don't see anymore? Come on, let's find out.
Okay, our first clue is in a practice that feels almost like magic to us today. It's the idea of decoding words to find their hidden numerical power. You see, the ancients believed that names weren't just random labels. They were like containers of pure essence. And if you could just find the number of a word, you could unlock its true, deeper meaning.
Here's a perfect example of how this actually worked in practice. Let's take the name Jehovah. In its original Hebrew, it's spelled out as Yod, He, Vav, He. Now, in their system, each letter corresponds to a number. So Yod is 10, He is 5, Vav is 6, and the final He is another 5. You add those up, and you get the sacred sum of 26. This wasn't just a math problem, it was a revelation. The number was the divine name.
And here's another fascinating one, the deity Abraxas, who was a really important figure in some ancient Gnostic beliefs. Well, when you add up the values of the Greek letters in that name, you get 365. Now, to the ancients, that was absolutely not a coincidence. It was the key to understanding this god's whole cosmic purpose, symbolizing the 365 spirits of the days, all wrapped up in a single divine being for the entire year.
So, moving beyond just the power of words, the Pythagoreans saw this fundamental duality in, everything, a kind of cosmic push and pull. And they believed it was expressed perfectly in the universe of odd and even numbers. Okay, so this is absolutely crucial to understanding their whole worldview. For them, numbers literally had personalities, even genders. Odd numbers, they were definite, masculine, indivisible. Their prototype was the monad, or the number 1. Even numbers, on the other hand, were indefinite, feminine, and you could divide them. Their prototype was the duad, or 2. And this simple division wasn't just some mathematical curiosity. To them, it was the actual blueprint for all of reality.
But inside this whole system, some numbers were held in really special reverence. They were seen as having this kind of divine harmony, and these were called the perfect numbers, a very specific kind of even number that embodied total balance and completion.
What's so cool here is you can see that perfection in action. Just take the number 6. Its divisors, the numbers that can divide it evenly, are 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you add those parts together, what do you get? You get 6. The sum of its parts is perfectly equal to the whole. It's a completely self-contained harmony. And this kind of perfection was incredibly rare, which of course only added to its mystique. After 6, the very next perfect number is 28. Then you have to go all the way up to 496, and then all the way to 8,128. I mean, finding one of these was like discovering a hidden law of cosmic beauty, like a secret signature from the Creator. And that brings us to the very heart of the Pythagorean code, the idea that the first 10 numbers weren't just symbols. No, they were divine personalities, each one with its own virtues and powers. Together, they formed a complete pantheon of creation. It all has to start with the monad, the number 1. This wasn't just the first digit for them. It was the all-including one, the sire of gods and men. You can think of it like the singularity before the Big Bang. It was God, it was chaos, and it was the single, indivisible seed from which all other numbers, and therefore the entire universe, would eventually spring. It really is the beginning and the end. So from unity, you get separation, and that is the duad, the number 2. Now, what's so fascinating is that the Pythagoreans actually despised the duad. Yeah, they hated it. Because it was the first to break away from that divine oneness, it represented everything that causes suffering, division, opposition, darkness, strife. So if the monad was the generative father, the duad was the receptive mother, the very essence of matter itself. But
When you unite the father, which is 1, and the mother, which is 2, what do you create? You get the triad, the number 3. This was seen as the first truly odd number and a symbol of perfect equilibrium. It resolves the conflict of the duad, which is exactly why it represents wisdom, justice, and peace. It's no coincidence that Apollo, the god of prophecy and clarity, gave his oracles from a tripod, grounding his divine sight in the stability of the triad.
From there, we get the tetrad, or 4. This number was so revered it was considered the root of all things, the very fountain of nature. They believed the human soul itself was a tetrad of mind, science, opinion, and sense. In fact, Pythagoreans would swear their most solemn oaths by the tetrad. To them, it was like swearing an oath on the structural integrity of the entire universe. It was that serious.
Next is the pentad, number 5, and it represents a powerful union. Think of it as the marriage of the first true feminine number 2 and the first true masculine number 3. So it was the ultimate symbol of harmony and relationship. It also represented nature, because when you multiply by itself, it always comes back to itself in the last digit, right? 5 times 5 is 25. This cycle symbolized the regenerative power of light, health, and vitality.
Okay, next up is the hexad, our first perfect number, 6. Because its parts add up perfectly to the whole, it embodies this flawless internal harmony. For this reason, it was seen as the form of forms and a direct symbol for the creation of the world, which, in a lot of traditions, took 6 days. It represented the beauty of marriage, the balance of the soul, and just the perfection of all parts coming together as one.
Now the number 7, the heptad, was held in a state of deep, deep veneration. It was called the motherless virgin because it's unique. You can't produce it by multiplying any other numbers under 10. And that gave it this pristine quality, making it the number of religion, cosmic law, and spiritual authority. They even saw a human being as a heptad, a threefold spiritual body, our divine part, connected to a fourfold material form, our earthly part.
Then we have the ogdoad, or 8. This number was sacred because it represented the first cube, a symbol of absolute stability and divine law made real on earth. It was a mysterious number, too, closely linked with the Eleusinian Mysteries, which was one of the most guarded religious rites in all of ancient Greece. It stood for love, prudence, and the unwavering counsel of the gods.
Number 9, the ennead, is fascinatingly complex. As the first square of an odd number, 3 times 3, it held this immense power and was seen as the number of humanity, reflecting the 9 months we spend developing before birth. But at the same time, it was also associated with failure and limitation. So why is that? Well, because it was the final station, the very last number before you reach the perfection of 10. It represents the horizon, always falling just short of total completion. And finally, we arrive at our destination, the decade, number 10. For the Pythagoreans, this was it, the greatest of all numbers. It contained all the others within it, because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, and because of that, it represented the totality of the entire universe. They called it both heaven and the world, because it literally comprehended everything. The journey was complete.
So let's step back for a second. It's pretty clear we've been visiting a completely different mathematical world, isn't it? For the Pythagoreans, numbers weren't these cold, abstract quantities that you just use for calculation. They were living principles. They had personalities, moral qualities, and the creative power to literally shape reality.
And that leaves us with one last thought to really chew on. By treating numbers as only quantities, just as tools for measurement and calculation, have we lost a powerful and ancient language, a language that was once used to describe the very soul of the universe.